Ladies and gentlemen, Darkside here, and I'm back with another video for Combat Esports Media. Yes, indeed, we have a lot of UFC 5 news to talk about, so let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, as you guys can see right here, we have information from Insider Gaming, Mike Straw at Insider Gaming, that is. Shout out to Mike. He is a goat for releasing all this information for us early. We got lots of good information on UFC 5, and we have lots to talk about. As you guys can see in the sources title right here, we do have a release date for UFC 5, and he has confirmed that it's rock solid. He has some great sources, which he will not reveal, of course. That's how the game goes, but he has some great news to deliver to us. As you guys can see, UFC 5 is officially going to launch on October 27th, so we are not far out at all. Classic EA strategy of, you know, low marketing for the game and then just drop everything all at once. So, of course, that's how they usually roll, and yet again, for UFC 5, that looks like what is happening. As you guys can see, October 27th, only for PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, so no PS4 and no Series 1. Let me just say, if you have a Series 1 or a PS4, it's time. The time has come. And no, that is not current gen, and PS5 and Xbox Series X and S is not next gen anymore, okay? The time's come. The time's come to upgrade. So glad that they're doing this with this game. I don't want them to be held back by the past generation of consoles. So it's a really good move by EA, in my personal opinion. And moving down here, this is also something extremely interesting. We are getting a rated M. Oh my! You guys don't understand how big this actually is, right? We are getting a rating of M for mature for UFC 5. This is actually huge for the game, in my personal opinion. This means it's going to be violence. This means once you go rated M, you have no bounds as far as like what you don't want to include in the game if it's too graphic. You can go crazy with the graphics once you get to rated M. So I assume this game's going to be very graphic. I'm hoping that also means we have a reintroduction of grounded elbow strikes, which I would only assume. There's literally no other reason why they wouldn't include it in a game, especially if they're going rated M. Like it's almost a guarantee, I would assume, that they're going to put grounded elbow strikes back into the game. I mean, as you guys can see right here, sources say that it's allowed developers to add more realistic aspects of damage as well as render damage in greater detail. The game will also feature blood pooling on the canvas, which is also sweet. Love that. And then, you know, lots of these different things when it comes to damage scaling and blood, all of that affects the rating greatly. And when you have the rated T like they had for the past couple of games, you're really limited in that aspect. I believe the last game that EA developed, a combat sports game that had rated M, was Fight Night Champion. And as you can tell in Fight Night Champion, you can get very brutal in that game with the cuts, the swelling, especially with the bare knuckle mode, how much you cut and bleed in that mode. So it's really good to see that they're going back to a rated M rating for what should be a violent game. Combat sports and stuff is a violent sport. Now, with that being said, who's in EA Sports UFC 5? So similar to UFC 4, the game will feature the biggest names in the UFC in a roster that will change and grow post-launch. They will be updating the roster just like they did in UFC 4, which is always good news. But there will be 3 legendary fighters added to the game's roster, and check this out right here. Mike Tyson, which Mike Tyson was, if you guys remember, in UFC 2, he was just ridiculous. He was a monster in UFC 2. Just highlight reel KO after highlight reel KO in that game. This is super interesting. Muhammad Ali. This is actually crazy that they have Muhammad Ali in a MMA game. It's nuts. Of course, Muhammad Ali is also in the boxing game Undisputed, which means that most fighters in that game probably do not have a license. They're not licensed specifically to the game. They don't have an exclusive deal with Steel City Interactive, so they can be in multiple games, as seen here. And then we also have Fedor Emelianenko. Fedor himself will be in a UFC game. Something that I think most people thought would never happen was getting Fedor into a UFC game. So it's insane that we're going to be able to play Fedor Emelianenko for the first time since EA Sports MMA released so many years ago. That's also a super cool addition. Love that they did that. Let's go ahead and move into Mike's next article, and that is going to be around career mode. So there is going to be an online career mode where you'll be able to take your fighters. I love that they did this. This should have been in UFC 4, to be honest, but it's a great inclusion to the game, in my personal opinion. As you can see here, the mode features only creative fighters. Love that. So all you calf goons who want to use calves, you got a place just for you. Just for you. The mode will see players fight in one of 4 divisions and rise up rankings in order to attempt to win a championship. I love that. Kind of gives me like OWC vibes from Fight Night Champion, honestly, which is something that was really cool in that game. I kept the game alive for a long time, so it's really going to be cool to see that in a UFC game. As you guys can see right here, Insider Gaming was told that progression will be similar to that of ranked championships from prior UFC games, which of course, you know, we've seen the rank system for quite a while now, so we kind of know how that goes. However, will be differences, however, in the form of evolution points. That's pretty interesting. You're going to have like an evolution system to your fighter. Should be pretty neat. These points, it said, will let players improve their fighter the more that they fight online. So actual progression, something to actually fight for, be really interesting if it's done well. That'll be really good for the game. Each division will allow for a different creative fighter. Nice. Fights will be found via skill-based matchmaking. Nice, nice. For those wondering, the online career mode is in addition to the offline mode, so you will still have both. So it's not just all online now, which is good for the offline community as well. So love to see that, love to see that. And moving on to the third and last article, which is actually big as well, that EA Sports UFC 5 is officially moving to the Frostbite engine, which will include new gameplay features. So what does that mean? Gaming has learned that EA Sports UFC 5 will move from the Ignite engine to Frostbite for the first time. This is similar to games like FC 24, Madden, FIFA. What was used to be FIFA was on Frostbite as well. I think NHL is on Frostbite as well. With the move to Frostbite, UFC 5 moves from 30 frames per second to 60 FPS. Praise the higher powers, 60 FPS. Who would have thought? In addition to FPS, the transition to Frostbite brings more detailed characters, better lighting, and even a new environment presentation. So I'm assuming the graphics just look like nuts compared to UFC 4. Most next generation games, the graphics look like really good. Like, I guess the biggest examples that have come out recently are games like Street Fighter and games like Tekken, Mortal Kombat, the fighting games. Look at the previous generation, or what would be considered the current fighting games that we have now, versus the next generation of fighting games. All the graphics look like insanely different. It looks so much better. So we can only hope for the same for UFC 5. Now this is what we really want to talk about right here. Gameplay in the Octagon. As I discussed with you previously, we know it's rated M, but this was because of how damage works within the Octagon. Insider Gaming was shown how the damage plays out in the fights. Elements like swelling and bruising accumulate with more accuracy as the fight progresses. So we have progression of damage within a fight, something we've been asking for so long, and I hope that it applies to the legs as well. I think slowing down from eating so many leg kicks is like one of the main things we've talked about for so long now. On each fighter, there are 8 regions for bruising, cuts, and swelling. One source said that it claimed that the damage can be combined in up to 64,000 ways. That's absolutely insane if that's true. That's nuts. That is nuts if that's insane. In addition to damage, there will be a new cinematic replay for knockouts that's supposed to improve the presentation during and after the moment of a KO. Love to see that. I mean, who doesn't like seeing a good like animation when you knock somebody out? Like the cinematics of that. Everybody loves that. Come on now. Especially for those who are content creators, it's going to add even more flair to videos and stuff of that nature as well. It was also shown to Insider Gaming that fighters will suffer broken noses. Oh wow. Swelled eyes and more in fights. So they're really diving. See, the rated M, like going rated M lets them really dive into like really showing off that damage, right? So when you're rated T for T, you have to keep it to like a baseline where you can't do too much. You can only go so far when you're rated T, but going rated M, you have so much more freedom to really dive into like the gruesome type of injuries. So it looks like that's exactly what they're doing. There will also be chances of doctor stoppages, which is also super interesting for the game. Doctor stoppages. I don't even remember the last UFC that had doctor. Was it the Undisputed series? Was the last time we had doctor stoppages? It might have been. It really might have been. For the fighting itself, it was said that the submission minigames are being removed. Instead, there is a newly built system based on transitions. Based on transitions, like so many of us has been asking from EA for so long. I can't lie, after reading this news that Mike has reported on, it's looking real good for UFC 5, I can't lie. Now, of course, we all know with EA, what, you know, what sounds good doesn't always end up being good, things of that nature. Of course, that's like with any game, right? Any game, the best you could hope for is to get good news. And to be honest, it sounds like we have some major W's for UFC 5. It sounds like it's going back to that more like raw, brutal style of gameplay, like the early Undisputed series, UFC Undisputed that is. And it's really looking like it's going to be diving a lot more, you know, deep into like the grit that is in combat sports. And you really like to see that direction. It looks like they're going for a more gruesome approach, more like, I wouldn't say sim, so to speak, but I feel like they're going more towards the direction of things that make sense, right? Like if you take damage, I'm assuming that it's going to be, it affects you at some point during the fight. The way that they're talking about it progressing, like it could get worse over a fight, I'm assuming that's going to have some type of effect on your fighter. So that's always really cool to see that they're trying to improve in that nature. We know the graphics are probably going to be like 10 times better than UFC 4 from what it sounds like from me. So really cool stuff from Insider Gaming. Like I said, make sure you guys check them out. Mike did a great job of bringing us some news finally for UFC 5. We got a lot of good info from him. Great guy. Love the news. Hope we get some more, man. Love talking about UFC 5. You know, always excited for new combat sports games and what's going on in the combat sports realm. With that being said, man, I have been your host, Dark Side with Combat Esports Media. I'll catch you guys in the next one, man.